All right, so let's call the meeting to order at 5:02 p.m. Let's see, Terry Werner.
Here.
And Matthew McGovern.
Here.
Maury Domingo. Mike McLeod.
Here.
Hi, Mike. Sam Houston Clinton.
Here.
And this administrative workshop is hosted under the Texas Open Meetings Act for discussion only. There will be no formal action taken during the workshop. Many of our rules are not in play that would typically be present for a regular council meeting. So there's much more opportunity for questions from any of the residents that may arise during the presentation. Please feel free to raise your hand and ask any questions that you might have. So I guess what I wanted to do is to have a quick overview right now of where the city of Martindale is in terms of our own current. Come on over, have a seat. There's plenty.
Do we need more chairs?
We do.
There's a chair for you. You can sit here.
Yeah, come sit here. Are you sure? All right.
Yeah, I'll see. I'll listen. No, you can have it.
Okay. Do we have anyone that wants to make a public comment before we begin? Yes, ma'am.
Just for record, state your name.
I'm Virginia Parker. I'm with the San Marcos River Foundation. I just want to say that we have been fighting wastewater treatment permits for the past 6 years in Caldwell County, one after the other. And if there is a solution that could lead to no effluent being discharged into creeks and rivers, win for the area. And I know that these guys need support to be able to move forward with this idea. It's a big idea, but it could be a big solution. So I'm very excited to be here tonight and really looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Get us going. All right. If you have comments as we move through, please feel free to raise your hand and let us know. Just as a quick kind of an update on where we are with our system. Right now, we are speeding right up at our capacity. We believe we have approximately 75% of our capacity used, which means we are right now in the process of needing to plan what our next steps are going to be and present that to the Texas Commission for Environmental Quality because of our permitting process. One of the things that we have been talking about doing with the city engineers is sort of an interim solution, something that can just serve us a little bit more in the short term while we're kind of waiting for these other water treatment opportunities to be planned and come online. It's going to take a few years for them to get built. And in the process, we will run out of our capacity. So we have recently engaged an engineer, water engineer, who is doing a study of our system, hi, Grandma. Sorry. Who is doing a formal study of our system to find out exactly what capacity is left and as well as looking at our current lift stations and what needs to be done to those if we are going to expand what we have, if we are going to be able to use them in the future going forward. If we want to even expand just for additional development, do we need to add lift stations or what needs to happen? So right now we're engaging in that. It'll probably take 4 to 6 weeks before that report is ready for us. And then we'll have a better sense of what we can do in the short term. One of the ideas that, do I pass that down, or is that mine?
No, I can second it.
Okay. So, one of the ideas that we have for the short term is that currently we have enough space on the lot where we have our ponds, our evaporation ponds, to expand our irrigation system. And that will allow us to add additional LUEs or hookups, to our sewer system. And while we may not know exactly how many hookups remain in the system, we know we are probably at about 75%. At 90%, we have to be actually building. We have to be engaged in the activity of building our new system, whatever that's going to be. We have got right now multiple developers from residential to commercial that are asking to connect to our system, and we don't have even enough to satisfy just the developers that are knocking at the door right now. So we're having to make some very careful and deliberate choices about how we're going to manage things until we get to a better solution that hopefully Chase and his crew will be able to help us understand at least one of those options tonight. If we're able to do the expansion of our irrigation system, that will only get us enough just until one of these other water treatment centers. Right now, there are 3 that are being proposed, 3.5 that are being proposed. And one of them is here tonight to talk to us. There's another group that will be here sometime in March. I just heard from them right before the meeting. And the third group, the council voted in, I believe, November, not to partner with. So then there's just that little half of a one, and I only call it a half of one. It would be a whole one, but it's very small and it's across the river. And it is facing a lot of challenges from like the San Marcos River Foundation and others. So right now it's tied up. It's really uncertain what its future will look like. So yes, ma'am.
Can you say the name of the group that all voted at the council not to partner with?
It's the Coot Engineering Group.
Sigmund Grafton?
Yes, and grafted. Yes, and
That's the development by Westridge.
no,
Oh,
no.
Oh.
That's just the group that Matthew and Mike during
That's the group right next to the current sewer plant.
yes, and they have the original Walton permit, the mud permit.
oh yeah.
No, that's Silver.
No,
Crossing.
they have their own mud.
So not,
Yes, they do. They are working on their own mud. Yes, they do. That's not. It's
That's
this.
another story.
If they aren't able to do that one, they were talking about going back to do the other one.
so Silver Crossing is the one that has the Walton existing permit. So is it that one y'all voted not to work with? Sigmund Grafton is on the south side of Highway.
Yes. Yes,
And
you are correct.
Silver Crossing is at 1979 and Highway 880 there, sort of near Mill Creek.
On the north.
Yes,
side.
on the north side.
And y'all voted not to work with
Yes.
Sigmund Grafton.
Yes. So, yes. So that's kind of a very confusing introduction to where we are. We're looking at both short term, what can we do right now, and long term, how do we evaluate these all of a sudden 3 major proposals that are in front of us that we're having to kind of sort through. And I know for most of us in the city, the river is a major factor in how we evaluate what's happening and what happens with the water that is treated and whether it goes into the river or not. So tonight, Chase Coleman and associates here, and they're going to explain their vision. And I know that a couple of people, I'll just give you a little heads up, have asked about your permit for the concrete. And I have been explaining to folks as it's come up that it is a recycling concrete permit. So you might want to mention that, Roger.
That's the batch plant you're referring to.
Susan.
So, oh, there's room down here. So, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourselves and just kind of take it away.
Is it better if we stand at the?
Yeah, go ahead and stand there. And Deanna, do you have the mouse? That they can click.
Yeah, I mean, this one, but it'll be which, Presentation post.
the link that I
Is that you? Got one in there?
Would be, should be this one would be
Yeah, this
first.
one first?
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
And there.
I'll put it up and then I'll be doing that. Okay.
That's all.
One second.
Is it if I just leave you with the mouse and
If you want.
we'll communicate?
Okay.
Yeah.
It is a tricky mouse. It likes, it has a mind of its own. Yeah, mine doesn't have it.
Yeah. And then there's some, the goals on regular, okay. Yeah, I was going to go, yeah, go with the other, when you're gonna be impressed, right? Yeah, we should, we both straight.
order the transcript.
Thank you, Liza.
This one didn't, but email didn't.
Wait,
I did that earlier and it didn't show that. I guess it was loading. Yeah, it must be accelerated the OneDrive or something.
Okay,
Oh, she did. So, yes.
Can't see.
Yeah. Are we good from some numbers?
are you guys good? Do you have it? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Okay, go ahead.
All right, so my name is Chase Coleman, Jack Dickerson.
Josh Berryhill.
So I represent Portable Investments. Josh is with Anubis. He's done a couple hundred.
About 230 different treatment plants all over water, all over Texas, water, wastewater reuse, including still the largest potable reuse facility in Texas.
So you set up some recycle,
Yes, sir.
zero discharge.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Another thing about Josh is Josh has helped pursue funds from
Texas Water Development Board, EPA, USDA, US Bureau of Reclamation, GLO, TDA, and a few others that are now retired.
Real quick, what state did you get a 552.5? You know what?
Yes, so the first one, this potable reuse, was originally a 10-15-3. Then it went to 10-15-1, and then we permitted it under reuse, so for human contact. And then on the potable side, compared to potable reuse, we also had to do a water rights adjudication because the water source we were going to produce, essentially, we want to make sure that senior water rights holders couldn't make a call on it.
So no 552.5.
No.
So, okay.
But potable is better than that, right?
Correct. Essentially, potable is taking it to essentially zero BOD, zero TSM, zero ammonia, and so forth. Anytime you're getting below 1 phosphorus, you're looking at biological treatment, below 0.5 biological plus chemical, below 0.1 biological, chemical with chemical supplement, and then potentially a polishing step beyond that, such as nanofiltration or reverse osmosis.
So
I'm sorry, wait a minute, could we just back up a minute, Mike, before we get into technical and just get like some of the
Sorry, I love that.
preliminary information? I appreciate it. Thank you.
I know about that.
We go ahead and go to the next slide. And what we're recognizing as the challenge coming to this area is Kyle has filled up, San Marcos has filled up, wastewater treatment facilities are at capacity, and we're seeing houses move this way. The other thing we're seeing is a lot of industrial projects moving this way. We've got concerns about all these residential developments having all these little wastewater treatment facilities that have lower standards when it comes to wastewater discharge. And there's really not a regional solution, but there is what we feel like is a regional opportunity. So what we would like to see, and what this map is kind of demonstrating, is we'd like to see wastewater not go across the San Marcos River. We'd like to see it come down 80. There's the Access Terminal project. There's other projects that are coming online, that people want to develop out along Highway 80. There's stuff coming up on 142, a whole bunch of houses wanting to come in between. So we really want to see a solution for all that wastewater rather than having these small discharge plants just popping up. And then the other concern is water security. Where's all this water going to come from for all these homes, for all these high industrial users? Josh was brought to us by someone who we highly value, and he is absolutely the expert in bringing a project like this together. Go ahead.
Next question, because you mentioned something that just kind of keyed me. So what I heard you say in one statement is it's not going to even touch the San Marcos River. Did I understand that? Now, I paraphrase what you said.
What's not gonna touch it?
The goal of this facility is 100% reuse, not sending a drop back to the San Marcos River.
I'm going to the stream.
Now, from a design standpoint, the facility has to be designed to be able to send that water to the river if we needed to. So it's got to be able to treat to that extremely low, tight standard. But the intent is to not send any of that to the river.
Yeah, so we were talking about, I'm sorry, go ahead, I don't have to, but I've been doing this a long time, go ahead, I'm sorry.
So
Or that includes secure and reuse. Yeah.
Got it.
one of the ways that we're anticipating on not going to the San Marcos River is we want to have a major water reservoir. So 200, 300 million gallon water reservoir. That provides the source of water for a water treatment facility, and then the water treatment facility will go and help supply these large industrial projects that are coming to the area. But our goal is to have some type of working relationship, preferably a public-private partnership with the city of Martindale. City of Martindale has the ability to go pursue all these different funding mechanisms from the state and the federal government that can help make this project more feasible from a financial standpoint. So this is a quick map. The maps are kind of around here of what we're anticipating. There was a Alliance Regional Water Authority. They did an assessment on this whole area and identified this area as a great area for a wastewater treatment facility to go. One of the great things about this prospective property is that it is not in the floodplain. So it conceivably, is not going to flood or get flooded out.
Are you talking about the Southeast River Road property next to where you want to build the concrete batch plant?
So that it would be on the. So the issue with the concrete batch plant is what we did is we went and pursued a 210E authorization, and from that we were able to say, hey, we're going to take industrial flows to this wastewater treatment plant. That kind of got it started, knowing that there's
Industrial flows, like explain that a little clearer for me, industrial flows. On resident, what's an industrial flow?
Industrial flow is any kind of wastewater flow that has less than 20 milligrams per liter of BOD, 20 milligrams per liter or less of TOC in the water. It does allow for some domestic wastewater in the mix, but it has to be below those levels to be considered de minimis domestic coming into it. The thinking behind this is starting with the industrial authorization, but then starting the permitting process to be able to accept as much domestic wastewater.
So industrial flows, could that be heavy metals or, from industrial base?
Could, or given what everybody's hearing, of course, things like data centers and other industrial facilities, anything that's used that needs non-potable water for cooling, there's a portion of that water that goes back into the waste stream. And in many cases, those facilities are being built without any place to send the wastewater to. And we can capture that, treat it, bring it to a drinking water standard with the technologies we have available.
So you're talking about this holding area, is that like a retention or something?
Yeah.
But Flood engagement. Okay, you continue. I'm sorry.
So a critical date coming up is March the 6th. That's when the Texas Water Development Board starts the process of evaluating projects like these for funding. We find that to be a critical date from March 6th. Then they start doing evaluations. My understanding is it takes a year for them to evaluate, probably 18 months to start distributing funds. And Josh, do you mind? Or is that?
No, that's fine. So March 6th, we have to submit PIFs. PIF is a project information form. Think of it as a pre-application. No financial commitment, just identifies the scope of work, what the anticipated cost is, the anticipated timeline for planning, design, environmental clearance, and construction. That PIF goes in with about another 50 to 100 other PIFs that are submitted. Those are all evaluated, prioritized over the next 3 to 4 months. A draft intended use plan is presented in summer of 26, so typically June or July, where they will rank those projects and identify which ones are going to be invited for the first round of funding. And we'll also identify how much of that is considered green funding, which has a certain pot of money of grant money. There's a certain amount of money allocated for disadvantaged communities. So those are communities that are equal to or less than 75% of the state median household income threshold. So essentially, what they're looking for are communities that are about 57,000 for annual median household income to be eligible for the grant funds. Each of those things kind of help with the affordability side of the project. Once they do the IUP, they'll invite early fall. You submit a full application at that point, and then it's about a 6-month process to get a funding commitment, about another 3 to 6 month process to close. So that aligns with the timeline we were talking about, to where funds would actually be available for a project.
And then just go ahead and go another one, go back. So this is what we're hoping that a regional solution will do. It'll prevent us from having package plants all over the place. Our understanding is there's 5 or 6. Virginia knows best, but there's a number of people going and pursuing permits. And my understanding is you can pretty much wait this thing out and you'll go get a package plant. Unless there is a regional solution that says, no, y'all don't need to build that. You're going to bring us your wastewater. And then this, once again, is about water security. So taking that wastewater, treating it, and providing water supply to the region.
And then I'll say this, I've been doing this a long time. Problem with this little town is lack of money. And the problem we have with Grafton is they want to do a long-term mud. And, the problem we have is we build plants and we need money to operate these plants. And to do that, like a lot of times I know there's impact fees, I know there's issues in San Marcos. They didn't come into the city limits, they came into the city limits. So it would help us if that was my whole plan, is to have a regional plan where people would say, okay, I want to hook up your sewer. With the city of Martindale, if you want to hook up, you have to come into our city limits.
Yeah.
Therefore, we get revenue to keep this thing running.
Right.
And going in, but a lot of them do, and Grafton did this, they try to do a mud.
Yeah.
30
Use
year.
it just to justify selling the lots.
And a 30-year,
Nothing planned on
and
the back end.
then a 30-year mud,
Yeah.
actually, we get it 30 years, the plant's worn out.
Yeah.
So we've
But
been
they
through
put
this
in a package
before.
plan that's really only valid for 10 years, but you've got a debt on that for 30 years.
Correct. Okay, I'm sorry, continue, I'm interrupting, sorry.
But key point of this, so just to further drive this home, so why we reference less than 1 MGD is because anybody who knows the regulatory side of the rules, there's a threshold. When you hit 1 MGD or larger, there's additional sampling that has to be done, different operating requirements per TCEQ. So everybody tries to go for something basically 0.95 MGD or smaller. And it's also a bit of a loophole because the smaller it is, the easier it is for TCEQ to justify higher, looser limits, which is not good for the watershed. So I know we're saying less than 1. I'll challenge it and say more like, imagine instead of a single first phase at 10 million gallons a day, imagine instead of 10 1 MGD plants, imagine 20 0.5 MGD plants. And each time as plants get tighter limits, they realize, well, we'll just play the game. Well, instead of 1, we'll go to 0.5. When those things get tighter, they'll go to 0.25. And instead of 20.5 MGD plants compared to one 10 MGD plant. Now you've got 20 0.5 plants or 40 0.25 MGD plants. And those smaller plants, the other thing that comes along with those is not just smaller, more discharges, but because of that smaller size, they're more likely to run roughshod. They're going to be in non-compliance all the time because they know their permit non-compliance fines are much smaller. It all compounds based on flow. So if you have a very small flow, they can get away with paying the smaller fines and they just continue on, except that still has that negative impact on the San Marcos River.
So if we go to the next slide, healthy ecosystem, eutrophication, and sometimes someone may wonder, oh, that eutrophication, the green stuff on top of it, I don't know if that's a real deal. Well, there's a picture of it right there at Hemp Hill Creek and William Pettis Road. I took, Jack and I, we took that picture about a month ago, drove by there last week. That's what it still looks like. There's a green film that goes on top of that creek. And that's the result of having small package plants and not the proper amount of discharge, not enough flow, and it's horrible for the environment.
And the fish are dead.
All the fish are dead.
Yeah, specifically the smaller the plant, the looser the limits they are, so the more nutrients goes into the water. What eutrophication is, the technical term is just the environment and food source needed to grow lots of algae. Algae during the day, algae during the day goes through photosynthesis. Sunlight's out, it generates oxygen. Great, dissolved oxygen levels look good in the river. At night, sun goes away, all that algae still has to stay alive. It switches from producing oxygen to using up oxygen. And that's what results in the fish kills. And it will continue to happen unless you get enough dilution volume, storm events, and other flow pushing through, or all of those little plants go into higher levels of treatment, which they're not required to do. And if they're not required to do it, they're not going to do it out of their goodwill. They'll only do it when they have to. Or in reality, you start to get them away into a larger regional system where it's easier to treat to very low levels and is sustainable going forward.
So you're saying a regional plant, so we're talking about servicing this whole area. How far up is it up? That far?
It's huge.
It's huge.
Yes, sir. So regional, we're considering, we believe that we're hoping that we would be able to tap into San Marcos, some of their wastewater. But once again, it all starts with Martindale. We've got to make our way through Martindale before we can talk to anyone else. And if Martindale says no, then the answer is no. And we fully understand that. We believe that there are a lot of state, federal funds available for a project like this. So that's what we're at. That's really kind of what we're asking for today is, hey, do we like this project, and is this something that we want to move forward with? Is this a team that the city of Martindale wants to move forward with, or do they want to move forward with another team? But I've been working on this for about a year and a half now. And this project is going to take time. And I recognize that and hope everyone else recognizes that.
Could you explain a little whenever about the green lines and the purple lines and all that?
So the green lines are going to be the sewer lines. Purple lines, you familiar with use? And then there's, I believe, a blue line, and the blue line would be the reused lube.
Like purple line.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, you're gonna put a main loop in where anyone can then tie into that on the reuse. Is that what you're suggesting?
That's what I'm suggesting. Yes, and I'm thinking the same thing for the sewer line. And all this kind of has to get figured out with attorneys and who takes the responsibility for this wastewater line, who takes the responsibility for the water line. So that would get figured out later.
So this is a new permit. You're not using our permit.
No,
Correct, that it would start off of the 210E authorization we've got, and then we would build a domestic permit on top of that, but it would be a new standalone.
In the new stand, but it'd still be the city's permit, and you're gonna build it outside the city limits on the Dickerson.
no, it would not be the city's permit.
The city, only thing we're asking for from the city is on the sponsorship to help with applying for the funding.
Yeah.
With Porthole as the financial backing for the collateral for that. The permitting side would be through Porthole.
So we're gonna give up our sewer plant.
Yes.
That would be, and
Yeah.
certainly an option for y'all for long term, yes.
But do they have to?
Would not have to.
No.
It's really comes down to later on, as you're talking about, Mayor, earlier, long-term solutions. Does it make more sense for y'all to look at ways to further expand your plant beyond the short-term improvements, or replace your plant, or to tie in to a larger facility? It comes down at that point on the economics for you.
Yeah, so my concern is the cost to the citizens going forward. You know, obviously, we only have about half of the citizens currently have the wastewater. And that was all done by grant, not the subdivision, or the subdivision already built when
It's an old plan.
yeah, and it's an old plant.
That's right.
Pete over there is rolling his eyes, shaking his head, I know, I can see it. That's obviously my concern is, you know, we talked about this before, that was one of the issues with the city drafted was, bringing a management company in, basically tripling our
Yeah.
monthly bill. You know, you obviously done the demographic study of our neighborhoods, and I don't wanna do that.
Yeah,
So-
if your share here is not equal to or less than what you're currently paying, it's not affordable for you.
Yeah, there has to be some level of give and take, so that's why, thank you for bringing that up, you know. But that's a big thing for me, you know, I mean, I have to be responsible for the citizens bill first. The wishes and dreams that we have are something secondary, but I'm very excited about it, obviously. But my biggest concern is what the cost is to the city. You know, that's my number one, you know, we're giving away a plant, our ability to control it, and we're on the hook to you, to whoever's gonna run it. That's a concern, but that's not something for today.
So I got a question, as it relates to the other side of the equation, in Virginia, you made comment about it months ago about the revenue to the city. And this is a open-ended question. We're not experts, obviously, but is it worth the city to take a more, I don't know if the right word is proactive approach. When we say revenue, are we talking about a lot? I mean, I'm asking a question that's, can you put a figure roughly on it,
No,
percentage wise or
I
anything?
don't think we've gotten to a point where we've talked about any of that, other than the fact that it would be proportionate to the amount of money that we're bringing to the table. You know what I'm
Can I
saying?
give a preliminary answer before they go into it? So my thought for Martindale, hoping to move back here, is that if y'all were to go with, say, Silver Crossing, there is no way Aqua Texas is gonna give Martindale a financial share in that plant, right? So not only have we lost the one utility that Martindale actually has, which is wastewater, because we don't have electricity and we don't have water. We have it, but then it's not owned by the city. Versus if y'all have a public-private partnership, then y'all do have ownership in something, which to Mike's point was a carrot to get people to actually come in to help with that in the tax base. I will say, some of these lots are gonna be in San Marcos C2J or whatever, and I am seeing San Marcos have people hook up to their wastewater without coming into their city, just to get the revenue off of the wastewater. Depending on the percentage that you owned, that would be the question as to whether or not you'd wanna do that, or whether or not they'd wanna do that. But this is the only way y'all keep one utility service for the people.
Yeah, and I guess that, based on what you're saying, that, are we gonna be, as a city, responsible for the administration of this going forward after it's gonna go? Is that part of the organization, or you're gonna run it
No,
yourself?
it would be from our end,
Yeah.
but it would, what we're talking about even in the P3 is ways to negotiate to determine what, if, say, for example, if you decided to get rid of your plant and become part of that system, that facility, you'd have a certain capacity, but you would have skin in the game. You would be there in the discussions, in the part of the decision making. What we're looking at is from the operation side, maintenance and all that.
Well, the skin of the game for us, for the developers to come into our city limits, pay property tax, pay for infrastructure. It's like, they got lift station, piping, right, we got all that, and that's been the problem with these developers. They've done this for almost 8 years.
But, you know,
And they,
if they're already, you know, as you're tying into a couple subdivisions, and for obvious reasons, alluding to them, they're not inside the city limits. We're not gonna get any skin from them already. They're gonna just tie directly into you. That's my understanding.
Do you guys wanna finish telling us about your idea first, and then we can get
Go for
more
it.
into the weeds?
It all kind of ties in, and I think you bring up a great point, and there's someone that's billing those people for those houses right now. They're not gonna wanna give that up. Just to say, okay, we're gonna pass this on to Martindale to go, you know, they've constructed so much infrastructure, they wanna generate revenue off of what they've done. I would say Martindale, similar situation. I would say probably one of the benefits for Martindale is you might be able to expand the city by offering a wastewater solution to some of the people that are coming into the nearby areas.
well, we got people coming, getting out of our ETJ now, because of this state law. They
Because
can leave our ETJ.
you don't have a wastewater solution.
Exactly, we don't
Yeah.
talk with fire, water, police, blah, 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 so.
So hopefully this would be one of those solutions that helps you keep those people from leaving and maybe even expand some.
Hopefully, that's the word, hopefully, I mean, you're dealing with some crafty developers, we've dealt with these people, they're crafty. But again, I have no problem with that, but again, if it gets to the point, I'm a river guy, that's why I ran councilman many years ago. But we wanna take care of the river, and if we could get people to, the whole dream would be, do the plan, and then encourage people to, if they wanna hook up, this is the question. If we have the state-of-the-art plant and they're in our ATJ, they say, oh, we want to develop it, we need to come in our city limits, and there's a problem with that, the San Marcos Center.
Well,
I mean,
can you go ahead and keep going so that we
Go
can
ahead,
get
I'm
the full concept?
So the solution we anticipate would be a state-of-the-art facility. We would start with a 10 million gallon a day facility, move to 20 million and then 30 million after that. That just because we say we're starting off at 10 million gallons a day doesn't mean we're going to build the 10 million gallon. We're going to build the appropriate size facility to the demand, but we very strongly believe that 10 million gallons a day, by the time we get planning, permitting, construction, operations, and maintenance, by the time we get to construction, we believe whenever that may be, could be 36 months from now, could be 5 years from now, but we strongly believe that 10 million gallons a day is not out of the question.
What happens, you know, the water, we're trying to figure that out, but is there sludge and waste, and do you dry it out in the field or truck it off, or what happens to all that waste sludge?
So typically we would go through either a aerated storage or a digestion process before we would mechanically dewater, and then that dewatered sludge would go to a nearby landfill. Instead of doing windrow composting, things like that, just because of potential space you need, odor that could come off of that, vector attraction, we typically try to avoid that if we can, unless we're truly out in the middle of nowhere.
So you truck it away to some landfill?
Yes, sir.
Close.
There are options to do processing for beneficial, taking it to either Class A or Class B biosolids and doing beneficial land application. You can't call it fertilizer because it has to have minimum amounts, certain percentages of phosphorus, nitrogen, and potassium per USDA. But you can call it soil conditioner because it does have a lot of nutrients in it. But before you even want to go that route, you need to do a lot of sampling to make sure there isn't anything spiking there, heavy metals and other things that could cause secondary problems. Ideally, we never want to solve one problem and create 5 others.
Okay. Thank you.
So I guess my question is, you built this state-of-the-art plant, we get a 15 flood event, and it washes into the river. Is that a possible scenario?
Not with the way we would design the facility. So the property that Chase has identified, number one, is well outside of the flood area. However, we still, as a part of design per TCQ regs, we have to make sure that any structure is outside at least 1 foot above all 100-year flood elevations Generally though, if we're talking about a super regional facility like this, we're not just typically gonna look at 100-year, we're also gonna normally look at 500-year. Just to be on the safe side, although understanding that the data is not as accurate for 500-year because FEMA's primary mandate is looking at 100-year floodings.
And we had a 500-year flood for one, we had two of 1 year, so,
Right.
I mean, it could happen, it's 1% chance, but we don't go ahead, I mean, that's my thinking. There's a lot of information we have to analyze here, I mean,
Yes, sir.
okay, go ahead, I'm sorry, continue.
And kind of with all that, with the questions and the concerns, and I recognize them all. My goal with this project is kind of like having a 10 times. Hey, is this 10 times better than the alternative? You know, what are the alternatives that we're looking at? And is a regional solution, if there was a 500-year flood event and you had a one-time event where water did get pushed into the river, but are we still 10 times better than having 10 or 20 different smaller discharge plants? And that's kind of where.
Well, no, but I gotta add a point there. That's with residential, but you just about heavy industrial, so. You know, if you have this event and you have heavy metals or heavy industrial, and you're gonna go into the stream bed of the St. Marcos River, and that's a concern for me personally. Even though it's a 500-year event or whatever you want to call it.
Well, I guess we're looking at two different things. You're talking about pre-treated wastewater being discharged into the river?
Well, he said earlier about heavy industrial to put into a holding area and a holding area, correct?
Well, it would be the treated water from the facility, not pre-treated. We would not be storing the wastewater coming in. It would be after we've already treated it. So
And
if there's,
the heavy metals would be taken care of?
Yes.
because number one, they would be captured. If we did have a certain amount of heavy metals coming in, it would actually be sequestered into the sludge. That's been my experience.
Okay, as thanks for that point, I didn't know, okay, sludge, and then the sludge is removed.
Yes.
And sample, okay,
Yes, sir.
thank you.
But I think we can go ahead and
Go ahead.
go to the next. So zero discharge, yep, all right. Funding stacks. We talked about that. Oh, we can go ahead to the next one. So we've already gotten
Go to the next.
the 210. Or even the next one after that. So I'm at the funding stack. There's public sources from the state of Texas, United States government. We cannot access those funds without a public entity. So that's why we're here talking to you all, seeing if you're interested in this project. We would be supporting the project also by pursuing private funds for this project. So that's a little explanation of City of Martindale. They have access to the Texas Water Development Board, the EPA, the TCEQ, USDA, and Bureau of Reclamation, all entities that have programs and money available for projects similar to this one. So that's kind of it for me on these slides. And then if we want to, maybe we'll just say, does anyone have any questions for where we're currently at?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
So I wanted to know, where is the location where you're thinking about building this?
It's down on Southeast River Road.
The old James track, if you're familiar with the property, Highway 8.
It's between 1977 and 1979.
So it's like Martindale ETJ. It's in Caldwell County.
It's Caldwell County.
Okay, so then how is the city of Martindale going to be able to pursue this with it being in Caldwell County and it being like a joint venture between Martindale and Caldwell County? Wouldn't Caldwell County have something to say about that? And whenever it's built, and then once the funds are coming back for like the tax benefits back to the city, I mean, it can't even come back to the city because it's not even in the city. That I'm just trying to like grasp, like, how is that gonna work?
That's a great question. there are a lot of wastewater plants and water plants around the state of Texas that are not even located within the ETJ of the utility that owns or owns a share of them. So the key for this is normally we think of everything as contiguous. So if you have a plant outside your ETJ, then you build a pipeline out to it, you run an easement and you create that so you can annex that portion to get it in there. There's an option though, if you're buying into or a part of a regional partnership for a utility, that if there's revenue coming in, if there's development coming in because of that regional utility that you're a partner of, then that creates that opportunity of being able to get some of that revenue coming back for that development. Because even though that facility is outside your ETJ, you have put ownership into it. And so that's become your proposed plan. So in terms of working with Water Development Board, that's the concept with them, and with any of the other funding agencies, is that we're looking at this as our long-term solution potentially to replace our existing facility. Yes, it's outside of our ETJ, but from the funding side, they're not worried about that. The only thing they'll want to make sure is that there is ultimately a contract and agreement over time that shows, yes, we're doing away with our plant here. We want to tie into this facility here. We're going to have X amount of capacity in this new regional facility. And that ensures that we maintain this wastewater capacity going forward.
So does that in effect change like the shape and size of the CCN or?
It all depends on who ultimately sets up that CCN. So if the CCN is set up under Porthole, it would not change it. But if you're a part owner on it, it could be set up potentially as a dual CCN, which then you can have your CCN extend beyond your ETJ, which is another way to be able to get wastewater development revenue coming back. So if there's things that are areas that become developments in between the extent of the ETJ for the city and then where the facility is, that can still be saying, okay, well, this is a part of our shared CCN. So it's still encouraging that revenue to come back here. And then last but not least, even partnering on something like this, it doesn't prevent you from looking at additional funding options for additional collection system improvements, things like that. It just further says, hey, we've tied into this facility, but now we need to expand our capability to send more flow, because if we can send more flow over time, we can control that development instead of having it happening outside our ETJ without any control or say on it.
Go ahead.
I am curious about the grant process. Seems like you've done a lot of these.
Yes, ma'am.
What does the process look like? What does the reporting look like? Who holds responsibility? How are the benchmarks determined? How does the city of Martindale work with private investing group in that context? Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Great question.
Thank you.
So say, for example, a PIF is submitted. It gets highly ranked. It's invited to apply for funding. We get the funding commitment. We close on funding. When the funding is approved, it's put into an escrow account. So with Water Development Board, with many of the other funding agencies, but we use Water Development Board as an example here. When you close on funds, every month after that in the project, you have to submit what's called a monthly outlay report. So there's a spreadsheet that breaks down what's called sources and uses. So sources of funds and then what are the uses? So what's allocated for planning, surveying, design, environmental clearance, etc., all the way to construction, commissioning, training, O&M, and inspection. Every month, you submit a status report along with that outlay request if you're asking for a pay draw or release of those funds to the applicant to release to being able to pay for those services. There's multiple milestones. So there's what we call planning, design, acquisition, and construction milestones. To complete planning, you have to do engineering feasibility report. You have to do environmental clearance. So you have to show that your project is in compliance with all national, we call it just NEPA, the National Environmental Protection Act. So essentially endangered species and historical protection. But that's the little piece of it. There's all the coordination with Corps of Engineers and tribal council governments and everybody else there. So you have to get that step. You have to complete the engineering, the planning level engineering, and the environmental clearance before they will release funds to go to design phase. Then you go through design. You complete your design parameters. This kind of facility we're talking about is biological nutrient removal to get low nutrient limits capability, as well as membrane bioreactor technology. That's considered an advanced and innovative technology by TCEQ, which means not only do you have your permitting side for the reuse capability, but you also have to do a plan submittal to the wastewater plan review team to show that your proposed design is in compliance with TCEQ's Chapter 217 design criteria. The reason I bring that up on TCEQ is that is one of the check boxes on the design milestone gate with Water Development Board to say, are we releasing funds for acquisition of property or easements? Are we releasing funds for construction? So we have to show that the design is in compliance with state and federal criteria. TCEQ has primacy for reviewing a wastewater treatment plant to ensure that both state and federal requirements under the Clean Water Act have been complied with. Once you get to design completion, now you can do the procurement. Procurement, we have to follow state guidelines for this. As done under a P3, we still have to show we have competitive procurement. We've given multiple teams the opportunity to compete, not just the most qualified, but including any historically underutilized businesses. Granted, that's changed a little bit recently with the state government. Now it's more like veteran hub businesses instead of minority and women-owned businesses. Don't get me started on that. My wife's from Mexico. She is giving me an earful. And she's majority owner of our company. So she's very unhappy with those new changes. I'll leave it at that.
So real quick, so we get this thing rolling, what percent would we get? So this plant's running, depends on how much inflows are going. What percent of the
If we were
revenue?
talking hypothetically of capacity, if we're talking about 10 MGD as the first phase, and say you were, as just simple math, if you were looking for an increase to 100,000 gallons per day of capacity, that's 1% right there. Now, that can change over time. If you have more development coming in where people want to bring in more construction and your flows need to go up, that number is not a set in stone number. It can change, it can be adjusted. And would anticipate to adjust as the city grows and you continue to develop.
I really quickly before we continue on this, are you establishing a water reclamation district under the water code?
Have not decided yet what the best appropriate agency is going to be. If that needs to be.
Okay, so to that, you said that annexation through a strategic agreement can occur through that. How if you don't have a district?
Well, we're going to have to create some form of public entity to be able to register the permit. So it could be done under porthole, but ideally it would be setting up some type of quasi-governmental entity for that, whether that's a district. I'm not a big fan of MUDs. I prefer special utility district compared to MUDs. Though the intent is not to have any taxing authority of that entity. It would strictly be looking at revenue repayment through wastewater rates.
Okay,
that's something we still need to work through.
But I just wanted to make it very clear that annexation or maybe a non-contiguous thing would require a reclamation district for the city to annex that, and a strategic partnership through that. So I wanted to clarify that for everyone.
I'm sorry, I think you were waiting for.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about the actual physical plant. It looks on the diagram that it's very large. And so how does that affect housing that's down the road coming in to, what does it look like 15 years from now?
It's a great question. I would love to say that every development that's right beside a wastewater plant goes up in value. I've seen quite a few that have done that, where households that were, well, the most advanced wastewater plant I've put in Texas has multi-million-dollar houses sitting right beside it. And over the last 10 years, they've gone up in value roughly 40%. The reason for that, and not saying, not to toot my own horn, but certainly we were trying to make sure that we were good neighbors. So in terms of active odor control at all times, any kind of treatment basin would have covers. Any type of equipment that could produce noise would be inside buildings for sound attenuation. Typically nowadays we do smart lighting on everything. I've seen way too many older facilities where in the middle of the night you drive past and think, man, who's out there playing tennis at this time of night? And they just stay on all the time. Generally where we set those up is with LEDs, low throw capability lights. So not text dot type lights that are 50 feet up in the air, but are more like 10 to 15 feet in the air. And they're smart lighting. So when an operator needs to do maintenance, if they need to do something in the middle of the night to check, they go out there, it'll have motion sensors that will turn on the lights while they're around it. And then after 5-10 minutes, it turns back off. So we're trying to make it where it's a good neighbor, where in most cases, the idea is you drive past, you can tell it's an industrial facility because it's not a set of houses, but you can't tell that it's a wastewater treatment facility whatsoever, not by sight, smell, or sound.
Carrie, I think you had a question.
I was kind of gonna piggyback off what Sonia had asked, but I'll save it because it's kind of a complicated question. So.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just wanted to get back to the grant part. I didn't quite get my question answered through no fault of yours. I appreciate you explaining the benchmarks. That all makes sense. This is a very involved process. But I'm curious about Martindale's role in the grant, in the, reporting and the responsibility of it. And like, who has jurisdiction? Like really, like, how does that work? If we're kind of the gatekeeper.
As the applicant, yes, as the applicant, the reporting would come ultimately from the city. The expectation, though, is that we would support in developing those reports. If it's public funds, we have to do data stake and wage rating interviews, things like that, that we would assist in providing all of that. Now, it wouldn't just be a rubber stamp like, okay, it's done here, put your cover letter on it and go turn it in. It would be something we would review on a monthly basis for all the reporting that we have to do.
So monthly, so I'm just trying to think of the resources that are gonna be required by the city to manage something like this over the next however many years.
Yes, ma'am.
I guess I'm all about the money, so my question is the same. Greg was referring to, Preston was referring to is, what's in it for the city? You're using the permit. You definitely sound like the best operators that are walked in the room. For whatever, that's just my opinion. But what is it in for the city? There's obviously, we've had several people bring up the biggest concern I have is the resources that the city's gonna have to spend monetarily, which we have limited. And then what's in it for us down the road? Are we going to receive revenue in some form or fashion from this? Because, one of the subdivisions that are right next to us, we've walked away from, and they're on your line, and obviously they have it in their thought process that they're gonna be connecting. We've already not been able to work out a relationship with them, that was hugely beneficial, to the point they've done a mud, and they would never be in the city in the next 30 years.
Can I give a pre-answer to your answer? They wouldn't be doing this if there was not a lot of money in it.
I understand the same, but
Yeah,
the same thing applies for, I don't, no offense to them, I don't care what they make.
Right,
I'm only responsible for
but
what.
if you get a
what-
percentage of
Well,
it,
that's right.
Well, we don't
know that.
we can't get the percentage, we really don't know.
We don't know, that's what we're trying.
We would need to get further into the planning and the
And
design.
really, the hot setup is to come into our city limits, then we know we get revenue, we get property taxes, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And that's the problem now, in the state.
So we have more negotiations to go later down the road.
Yes, but growing your tax base and getting that additional revenue from having more capacity is where the revenue would come from.
Do you have an example of this with another city, our size, like the fast that y'all done and how successful was it for the little town?
Not in terms of putting something together like this. We've done other P3 projects. I've done multiple reuse projects where going to a regional facility has significantly saved the operating cost. So even just in the standpoint of without separate revenue, just from the capability of reducing what the operating costs were compared to your current rates resulted in additional revenue. Not to mention
So our operating costs are very low.
moratorium.
Very low here. The operation concept. I just got more, okay.
Sonia?
I just wanted to add that I think it's gonna be super important, like for the city of Martindale to go ahead and just like do a projected study of potential growth as far as like houses being built in the area. So number one, to start looking at land that potentially is vacant, is for sale, like to take estimates of like according to our ordinances, like how many houses could be built there. What if this came in? What if, the different areas? Cause I don't think that there has been a study like that.
Greg just started talking to
We're gonna
the,
be
oh,
talking
good.
about it in the near future.
the Hayes Caldwell Economic Development Partnership. He was speaking with them about trying to work through them to have those kinds of studies done.
And I just remember one thing that he said, He goes, whether you're ready or not, it's coming, so we might as well get ready.
Yeah.
Another question on us not having anything to look at, how are we expected to enter into any kind of agreement? An MOU, I don't think is the appropriate process with a public-private partnership, but that's what we all put forward. If you don't know what that looks like, how can you expect us in 2 weeks? You don't have anything in front of us to
So the-
review.
the
We haven't, like, we have nothing to review. Council has nothing to approve. Are you expecting negotiations to be accomplished in 11 days, have a special meeting and it be approved then?
The MOU is not an agreement. The MOU is only acknowledging with Water Development Board to be able to submit the PIF. It's not establishing agreement of what the capacity would be, what the share would be, revenue, cost sharing, any of that yet.
But under public-private partnership, there are specific procedural steps, and it reads almost as if your MOU is attempting to be an interim agreement.
Only, I agree, 100%. I've done it with P3s. The only intent for the MOU is to show the Water Development Board that there is an understanding. It's not a contract. It's not saying that then that this is the project.
But what was submitted had contractual language in it as it related to exclusivity, the city trying to protect proprietary interests of the company in executive session, which is not an appropriate spot for executive session. So, what is it that, from a legal perspective, is that you're asking to be voted on? We don't have anything in front of us that clearly delineates any of this such that we have clear legal parameters for approval.
The only intent, again, for the MOU was strictly to be able to submit the PIF with Water Development Board, and so the Water Development Board can see if there is that agreement between, it's not setting into construction or anything else, but it's to make it eligible to apply for those funds. And then going forward, you would need to go through the normal procedures for actually developing a P3 agreement, a actual contractual agreement.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
If they do the MOU with y'all, you spend the money to go apply to Water Development Board, they change their mind, can they back out?
Yeah, I'm not sure. It's a question for Chase.
That's the way it's kind of written in the MOU, is my understanding. So give us your impression.
The MOU has exclusivity proceedings. It has a variety of things that the cities can't agree to. It didn't say anything. It didn't lay out any clear benchmarks or understanding. Past that, I can't really advise you on what your proposal was. But I will be chatting about those pieces with council separately.
Okay. Yeah. So in the MOU, do we have a copy of that?
Mhm.
We can pull that up as well to go over the exclusivity.
It's in the email that I sent you.
If you want, just scroll down and see where we're getting cooperation and exclusivity. Okay, so during the term of this MOU, the parties agree to work collaboratively and in good faith, identify, apply for, and secure any and all available items.
So my point with that is that it almost reads as if it's an on the way to an interim agreement under 2267. So it, like, we don't, what is it that you're asking us to vote on? What is it that you're asking us to vote on?
And so I apologize, but if we scroll down, there's if y'all give us written notice.
Sure.
termination. It's right up there. Termination, so either party upon 3 days written notice. So I guess what we're saying is we're using this MOU to go pursue funds from the Texas Water Development Board. If the city of Martindale decides that they don't want to do this, then they just have to wait 180 days and they can do the same process with someone else.
That's not, but that's not what an MOU is. An MOU is non-binding, therefore we should be able to immediately terminate such obligation were any to exist.
Okay.
So again, I ask, what is it that, because I have to be able to advise the body, the legal ramifications, liabilities, risks, etc. What is it that you're asking us to review and approve tonight? So that that can be appropriately accomplished.
I guess. Have an impasse here or?
That, or if it's instead of approving an MOU, if there's an approval to support submitting the PIF, that's really the minimum that we're looking for tonight. Otherwise, we would all have to wait another year.
And we're fine with that as well.
Well, our next city council meeting is actually on the 5th, so. I'm just throwing that out there.
No, and we fully understand, we're not trying to push anything here. We're just trying to present an opportunity and a solution to a problem.
But that would keep, I know something exactly what you just said, because I read that earlier, so.
Okay.
So,
Well, maybe before we conclude, we may want to hear from Pete because we talked about our own plant, our evaporative ponds, and how temporarily we might have to expand those to have more LUEs on it. Can you just briefly tell us about your experience with these ponds? I mean, are we gonna irrigate more water in these fields or what? How are we gonna increase our capacity? Here, Miss Harper wants to do. Here.
Party late. Just here.
Just kidding.
I think they extended out the lines, doing the summer this year, so they could cover more of the irrigation fields, or the wastewater.
So you think it's potentially we can,
Well, this is a kind of temporary solution.
okay, but we can do that with the amount of land that we have there, 24 acres or how much?
I think it's 40 acres.
How much is it? 40. Okay.
We have to just wait and see what that number you can get out of wastewater.
I wanted to ask you something, Pete, as far as like, whenever in 2021, whenever the report came out about the sludge and what had to be done about it, where is the city of Martindale at in that process?
And, that's a big question mark there, we've never had a full day sludge out of this.
So
And, but I had got a quote from a wastewater transfer to clean up on the increased water.
Because I know like that was back in 2021 that happened. And I was reading the report on what it said, and there was like remedial measures that were supposed to be taken, by the city at that point. And I read on the report what the remedial measures were because of the city funding and what could be done within those parameters. So I was just wondering if there has been any other type of like closure to it? Are we where we need to be at? Are we still in?
We talked about it.
Yes.
But didn't we apply a chemical to break up the sludge a little bit?
It was just
That doesn't fix it.
it's just a temporary fix.
Okay.
What I remember, you said evaporation system, that sludge should be removed every 10 years. It's been over 40 years. Yeah. Been over 50 years.
we're getting our money's worth.
Yeah. But they're still getting that, they're still getting the permit from it.
The TCEQ permit
Yes.
to operate, okay.
All we have is a VOBSPA.
Virginia, did you have a comment?
I have one more question for them, because y'all, this has been a problem since I moved to Martindale in 2013, and I hate for y'all to miss an opportunity. Like, I understand the legal questions 100%. But if they said they supported y'all approving or sending an PIF, and then Texas Water Development Board said, yeah, you're high on the list. Like, there's no application thus far. Y'all talk for the next year, and then at the end of those talks, they're like, we really don't like this idea. There's not enough of the pie for us. We're gonna get screwed here financially. You're not obligated to then apply for the funding.
Correct.
Is there a way for them to be able to back out on you to cover their own hide? I know that's not what you want, but we've had a problem here, and this is the best solution for the river. So if y'all could take the next year and figure out what chunk of the pie you need.
What the terms are, because this, I mean, my understanding was very much in line with y'all's, as you know, from the last time that we heard. The point of tonight and at the council meeting was a preliminary agreement to apply, to allow.
To submit the PIP.
Yes, exactly. And that we have had no conversations, because I didn't have any authority to do that, the council has to do any kind of negotiations. But that would be part of a legal document that is created, a development agreement or a contract or whatever the case would be. And that's where we would negotiate out terms of what percentage or how that would work, or what we would use of our own equipment or not use or whatever. One of the concerns that I know Greg and Deanna and I have talked with y'all and with Virginia and whoever else, has been that we, on one hand, we are pretty much maxed out on the current system we have. We can get permission as a short-term intervention to expand our irrigation a bit, because we do have more square footage we could irrigate over. But in terms of being able to go back to TCEQ and say, we're almost at our max, here's our plan, they are never going to approve us to continue using the type of system we have now. It will not be approved again, because time has moved forward, techniques have moved forward, and having a giant, what amounts to basically is a municipal cesspool.
100%. And that floods in 2015 floods.
Yes, and that will not any longer be allowable by TCEQ. So when we go back, we have to have another plan. So like that's my fear in my head, is we cannot continue using what we have, because it will not meet muster. But on the other hand, if we tie ourselves to you on a contractual basis, and then something happens, like we wait an entire year where we're only gonna get whatever we can sprinkle further on that land. And so we wait like a whole year to figure out whether or not we're gonna get that funding. And if not, then we need to find other funding. By then, we have 0 LUEs left and we're running on empty. So I fear being exclusive, and feeling like, okay, now we're married to y'all and we have to go down with the ship, because we are in a position of complete vulnerability as a city, in that it's no longer a matter of, oh, development is coming. Development is here. They are here. We've got probably about, I don't know, I'm going to estimate approximately 3,500 residential units wanting to build within the next 3 years, wanting to break ground within the next. At that level, Some are in the ETJ, some are in the city, but people want to join the city. They want to annex in if they can get sewer. And we cannot help them. Our hands are tied. So I don't want to be in a position where we're up against the wall. This falls through no fault of your own, because it's brilliant. But like, let's just say something bad happens and it doesn't happen. If we are married to that plan and we don't have the flexibility to come up with a plan B while we are developing plan A, we're gonna be in a mess, a giant mess, and I can't tolerate that.
But not necessarily so if you remove that sludge, right, Pete? We don't really know that, that's
Yeah,
$1 million
I
question,
think-
that's what, we don't know what capacity would be increased by removing that sludge, you know, every 10 years, we've been 40 years, that's a lot of sludge, and those aerator systems have never.
Yeah.
The man that's doing the current study, the engineer that is doing the current study of our system will be able to tell us that. And be able to give us a more close approximate of how many hookups do we have left. So I think we'll have more information soon, but not sooner than March 6th. So we'll have to decide, I guess, that's kind of the point of tonight, is decide, do we want to sign the MOU? And maybe we need to, well, we can discuss it further, but maybe that's a matter of adapting the wording in the MOU that was presented. So that it's something that the council feels like they can commit to as far as doing the PIF and submitting it and attempting the funding for it. And still allow us the opportunity to do the contractual negotiations over the next year and look at, when we get the results from the engineer, look at what other options might exist in case that doesn't happen.
I got a question for you.
Mhm.
Perhaps you could, work with these people on the MOU and word it properly that we're more covered. Is that what your concern?
Most of the rest of my comments are a training plan, so I will wait till we have that.
But I'm just saying that could be,
We can discuss
We're
that.
gonna discuss that during the regular meeting. During Saturday.
and I'm all for this, but we need to cover our butts. Basically, and you know, if the lawyers, we have to get the lawyers involved, that's the way it is, but, we need to have the wording properly to protect us, pretty much.
Public-private partnerships have very specific statutory requirements that must be followed.
So if we could, at that point, we'll discuss it and get with these gentlemen and come up with a adjusted or a modified document. Is that?
We can
Something-
discuss that as a group in executive session.
So we'll be doing that at our next meeting.
Okay.
So right after this.
I have one more question. I wanted to know if y'all have been in discussions with any other surrounding areas.
We had a meeting, Virginia Parker helped us have a meeting with the city of San Marcos. And my understanding is really Martindale comes first, gotta have an agreement with Martindale, and then city of San Marcos would take it as a more legitimate project. Cause they're not gonna send water lines through your jurisdiction.
Right, and then like, as far as like, as a citizen, just like asking the city, I think it's pretty close, like, you know, for us to get over here, they're already needing a decision by March 6th. And like, for us to be able to do like informed research and look, cause whenever I look at Porthole LLC in Austin, it comes back to a house, like in Austin, I guess where the office is. So, you know, for me to be able to look, like what's really going on, what projects have you done? What else is out there, like what other developments are, I really didn't see anything. And then what was the name of your
Anubis Engineering.
Anubis?
Yeah. And before that, I was a vice president in Protectives in Todd. So, like I said, there are currently the top 2 reuse projects that are going, well, one that's in operation and one that's in construction. One for El Paso is what's called direct reuse. So I hate the toilet to tap phrase, but that's exactly what they're gonna do. They're gonna go straight to distribution, but they're gonna put an advanced water plant behind the wastewater facility. We did the same thing for Abilene, except we then took that water to a lake and then sent it to the water plant, because we didn't like the idea of direct flow.
So Natalie, could we do this? Can we like maybe table this and you could come up with a document, to modify that document with them? And have this discussion with your concerns in there?
Prior to doing so, I would like to have a chat with the body.
That's fine, but I'm just saying, is to
We
move,
can
is
discuss that.
to move forward.
We-
Look, to move
We can discuss that.
forward.
There's just information that I'm not sharing out loud that might inform your
I'm just
opinion.
asking
And so-
conceptually.
Conceptually, anything is possible.
Okay,
So long as it's in accordance with the statute and.
that's what I'm saying, you're the lawyer, we're not, but if we get the verbiage right, then get back with you guys with our verbiage, that sounds reasonable. Okay.
All right, are there any final questions or thoughts or yes, sir?
Question about the plant you put next to the property that rose in value. Do you name which municipality that was for?
City of Granbury has two different facilities, their south side plant and then their east facility, both of which utilize biological nutrient removal and membrane bioreactor technology. All tanks are covered. All odor control is active at all times, 24/7. There's no chemicals added for it. Everything is operated biologically. And then all equipment is either blowers are either within sound attenuation enclosures themselves, and in many cases, they're within that as well as within another building. To where, again, you can walk right up to the property line and you don't hear anything. You see the structures, of course. You don't hear anything, you don't smell anything, and we were concerned about the potential that property values would go down. Though technically the wastewater plant was there first, but it was an older plant that was not very compliant. Once we upgraded it, again, 3 of the council members actually live in the subdivisions. So where the plant is their south plant. They have a city manager that lives on the north side, on the north fence line in one subdivision. One council member lives on the south side and then one on the east side. So they're, at all times, they're like this. Yes, sir.
So if we call the city of Granbury and ask them about you guys, what's your take on that?
Given the fact that they had their satellite plant that was protested by 14 people that lived out of town that didn't want to plant there, even though it was going to be the most advanced facility in that area. And I supported them through that contested case hearing, and they won their permit so that they could continue to do the development at the right treatment technology level. I would say Mr. Kaufman would probably be fairly complimentary if you ask him who I am.
He'd give a good report.
Yes, sir. Everything we did with TCEQ was not only meeting TCEQ's requirements for treatment, it actually went above and beyond in terms of technology and requirements. We knew likely what their permit limits were going to be, and we designed everything to operate significantly below what the anticipated permits were going to be, just to be on the safe side. Because if it's mechanical, things can still go wrong. So we want to make sure we always have a buffer in all of our treatment capabilities.
All right. Well, thank you very, very much, gentlemen, for coming and putting on the time into the hearing.